Hey guys, welcome. This is Dr. Bush for the process. You're following my journey here. This is going to accompany my Snaps Report article at fakepigskin.com. Everybody's happy at Fake Pigskin. Don't you love the little piggy face there? Looks like he'd bite a plug out of you. Okay, let's continue here. This is what happened week 1 and 2 as far as snaps. Snaps gives us insight into opportunities, and that allows us to walk away from chasing last week's points. This is the part of the season where that really starts kicking in, that feeling that you have that you need to grab the hot player from last week or you're going to miss out. And so you're going to be 1 week behind if that's the game you play. And that's going to be really tough, and you're going to be frantic, and you're most likely going to have a harder shot at winning. Just going to be straight up with you. You've got to stay ahead of the wave, not be crashed by the wave, and you've got to do things your league mates are not doing, and they're not thinking about what's going to happen. They're looking at what already happened, and you've got to try to anticipate, being forward thinking. I didn't say that's easy. It is not easy. That's not necessarily something you're going to accomplish in a week or so. That comes with success, experience. It's that you got to chop the wood, then you get the fire concept. You cannot get the fire and promise to chop the wood later. That is not how it works. That's what I tell my students who want to go to medical school, vet, dent, pharmacy. Well, I'll work hard when I get there. No. I want the doctor who worked hard to get there, right? Who chopped the wood. So I'm going to try to show you things that I'm thinking about, and we'll just go from there. Uh, Usually my context will be redraft PPR thinking. Okay, if you're in some obscure leagues or standard scoring, and some of this stuff may not be as applicable, you'll just have to kind of find that journey for you here. So anyway, week 2 snaps report, what's going on and what does that mean for the future. And the first thing I like to do every week is figure out how teams have behaved in their activities. And basically, you can look at rushing and attempts and passing attempts. It's important to know what teams are passing, what teams are rushing, what teams are balanced. You've got to have that. That doesn't mean this week's game script will be followed. All that means is you're trying to develop kind of their, what is it, MO? What is under, normal conditions, not extremes, what can we kind of expect? Teams that rush a lot, their running backs are probably going to get more activity. Passing teams will have running backs that might be catching more passes, that kind of thing. So you're kind of almost trying to paint a picture of what players are going to be successful within each team. Okay, and just keeping track of those trends. Has things changed? Something happened, a major player goes down, the quarterback goes down, and that can change the situation. So I like to figure that out. I also like to do what I call top time of possession. I like to see what teams are taking a long time and maintaining ball control, which ones don't. Uh, if you'll look in my classroom lesson, and I forgot what lesson. I have 100 lessons. Okay, I don't remember. That was June, July, August. But in the one where I dealt with this, statistically, teams that rush a lot have tend to have more or longer tops, longer time of possession. That probably makes sense versus teams that are passing more. Just kind of thinking. So if we can look at time of possession, that helps us confirm a team's, their offensive process, which is, I think, important. You can have opportunities, but if you're the wrong, the square peg in the round hole kind of thing, right, on a rushing team, if you're a wide receiver, you may not get your full due. And it's important to know that on waiver wires and trades and playoffs and these kind of things. So you've got to kind of keep track of all this. And I believe these metrics that this shows us that information. So I have the team, and we'll talk about the colorization, but it should be obvious. Rushing attempts, and then I looked at scaled rushing attempts to try to put it on the scale of 0, which is the worst rusher, to the best rusher. Sometimes teams are off scale. In this case, Baltimore's 109. That's off scale. They're so far above the league here. And guess what? They were last year. So that's not surprising to me if you kind of use last year's data here. So let's look at, and I call it rushing attempts, scaled to a number, so you can compare directly rushing and passing looking at scaled numbers. And there's usually a reciprocal situation. Teams that rush a lot will tend to pass less, and the reverse of that process. So there's a lot of information here. Passing attempts, if you look at the scaled PAs, we can see that a lot of those are at the bottom and a lot of the hot rushers are at the top. Okay, that's just kind of how I sorted this. Also created a ratio. Sometimes that allows us to look at things differently. And you can see rushing to passing, and you can see all the way down to a scale of 0 to 6, which is the highest and the lowest. I also colorized the teams that were strong rushers compared to passing. You can see those teams, and the strong passer teams compared to the rushing. So take a look at the running backs here and make sure they can catch passes. Okay. Look at the running backs here and make sure they're strong rushers. Okay, and have a lot of that. So it just gives you a way to look at this, and this is going to change somewhat, but this is kind of the data. And then the time of possession, I scaled it, and the purple are the teams with the highest, so that would be Denver, right? Then what, Baltimore? Okay, notice these are fairly high rushers here. And so look at some that are the least offensive possession teams, and they kind of correlate with either balanced or passing. So it's just a way to consider what the team has done, and maybe, notice the word maybe, do, this week and next. So just kind of teams assume an identity, so it's best to try to figure that out and keep track of that. So if you want to see my process, by the way, I use a lot of metrics to help me guide my thinking here and ideas that I get from this. Okay, this is not gut feeling. This is not listening on the internet. This is my process. This is something I've been doing for quite some time. I've just been sharing it now over the years. Not sure many people have the time to probably do this. I got that. But those that do, here's a way to go, right? It not necessarily the way. It is just a way that works in my hands. I'm sharing it with you. Okay, so I hope that you take a little something out of this and it helps your game. You have to look beyond one season, and hopefully this helps. So anyway, that's kind of what I took from the first 2 weeks as far as possession, running, passing, and finding the high rushers and the high passers kind of teams. If you kind of look at how I've scaled this, and I've sorted by rushing to passing ratio here, so you can see that you can kind of see how teams have behaved as a trend on their activities. Here's the scaled time of possession from high to low, okay? And then if you look at rushing, take a look at, and I did a trend line, and notice towards the end, the lowest rushers in the league, the trend is to be with the lowest time of possession. Passing, I didn't really see a lot of change. Notice it's almost flat. This is a polynomial trend line, but this is clearly at some point starts dropping, certainly below the average there. So there is that tendency, especially in the extremes, to be either high rushers up here or lower rushers there. So there is some indication that way of teams and their identity you can kind of track with time of possession. Okay, I don't think anybody's brought that up that I know. I can't read every article and tweet and whim out there, and pundits, and sometimes pundits don't even know what they said week to week. They just throw things out there, hope it sticks. That's not how I do things. I don't tweet a lot. I have my own process, and it doesn't include wasting my time tweeting, things so I can next week take a victory lap or something. Nobody got time for that, really. So, just if these people spent less time on Twitter and more at the data, they would enhance their game. High versus low time of possession. And in this case, I divided the top 16 and the bottom 16 in time of possession. This is the last, certainly 2 weeks. I hadn't looked at last year. And I just averaged the number of passing attempts versus rushing attempts. Passing is in yellow and rushing is in red. And you can see the top 16 teams that had the highest time of possession were tended to average as a group 36, and passing attempts per game versus 33. So it's really only 3 attempts, not as much. This is 28 to 23, so it's 5 attempts And that actually, if you think about it, that's actually more significant because there's less rushing attempts on average than passing attempts for most teams now. And given the lower numbers, 5 is more significant here. So there is a trend here, and we caught that with the trend line, and this just kind of shows you the gross. This is almost flat. This is definitely skewed downward. So again, and you know, if I played the league where running backs got, you know, points for attempts, this would really help you in those leagues because it would spot those teams that on average 5 points less a week they're running backs. So that would be nice to know. I don't play in one of those leagues, but I know they exist out there. So maybe this is really critical for those players. I hope so. So that's just my point to kind of double illustrate that connection I think's out there. And I've done over multiple years in one of my lessons on my classroom, and I've did an ANOVA analysis and Tukey testing. That's a funny word, Tukey. Dr. Tukey actually invented this stat. So, you know, if you're curious and want some more statistical look at this kind of association, didn't find anything with passing, but definitely found it with rushing. Okay, so now we're moving into the snaps, but you're seeing my process. I'm trying to figure out what the teams are doing and how they're rushing, passing, and time of possession. So those are all interesting, setting the table that way for this week. And I have here average team snaps over the 2 weeks. Okay, Tennessee's number 1 and New Orleans number 32. And you see the where you're, if you have a favorite team, you can find the teams. And of course, I scaled that to league average. I think it's important. And the reason I do that is 76 versus 52. When you look at those just numbers, 76, it sounds about the same. How about if you look at 10 plus 10 and minus 13? Same data scaled to the average, and now you see, oh, well, that's a minus, and that's a plus. You see how it hits us viscerally, the scaled data. So part of my process is in a glance, you can see New Orleans, Seattle, Rams, Pittsburgh, and KC have the lowest snaps in the league here. We're not talking about points, right? You can be a super efficient team and win games, but on average, I do like to play players that have more snaps. That means potentially more opportunities, right? That's just kind of a trend, but not every team follows that, okay? And then I have points scored, and you can see it's not, if it was a perfect correlation. And by the way, this is Tampa Bay, 39 points. Notice it's a little bit below average, not great below average. So it might be the extremes or something. But notice here, there's a lot of nice scoring teams right here. But there's some poor scoring teams as well. So I'm not sure there's as much correlation here to snaps and points scored. But again, we're talking touchdowns, which are a little bit more random anyway. So maybe points scored versus, say, yards generated or something might be a better. Maybe I'll look at that next week if I can remember. I don't know if I can remember. But anyway, just kind of considering what teams are, who they are, what's their identity. Are they doing a lot of snaps or not doing a lot of snaps? That's just important to me, and I think it especially the depth, right, of these, say, wide receiver crews. If you're don't have a lot of snaps, it's going to be hard to make some of the players, the third, fourth running wide receivers, a little bit more viable than on teams that have more snaps, therefore more plays. That would just kind of seem to be logical. So, probably need to look at wide receiver 3 success and look to scaled targets. Maybe I'll do that off season. But if you hadn't figured it out, what I just went over thinking about things, that was not scripted. That was just me looking and considering what are the next questions. So that's the hardest part of my process, and that's something as a biologist, as a scientist, as a PhD, that I've been doing basically all my life. That's the thing. I've been doing it all my life. I've been working on my master's and PhD since the 1980s. So what is that, 30-something years of looking at data and thinking about questions and using the scientific method. So I'm ahead of you, unless you're a scientist as well who's been doing it for 30 years. So I can't help that. But there's no reason you can't start moving towards that goal of thinking about questions. Okay, that's more important to me than last week's points. It's not the points, it's the why. Why did that happen? Okay, that kind of thing. And I think by framing your investigations and questions opens you up to apply the scientific method. At least that's what I hope. This is the visual graph of that. This is points scored and teams that have more snaps, teams that have less. It actually looks like a reverse, that some of the higher scoring teams are kind of found over here with the least snaps. But then again, maybe that is telling us something. So this is just the actual plot here. Looks like it kind of bottoms. It almost looks like some extremes on the end a little bit. Maybe there's some secrets here. If we had more data than 2 weeks, this would be a little bit more clarified. So, but I thought we could look at that and consider what's going on. Okay, I think must be breaking for a new data series. Yes, I am. So the next step in my process of snaps is I like to look at the teams first. We've done that. Now we're going into the positions. So the question is there a skew to the team's usage of a position if we can measure that by snaps, not by points, not by touchdowns, but by opportunities. Hopefully snaps is catching that aspect. And I like to look at the metrics and just consider what the team is doing for us. So Arizona, if you look at Arizona, and maybe the way to do it is do the usage. That's probably clarifies things a little bit. And the higher usage, the more that position is used in the snaps. So Arizona is skewed to the running back at 33 and certainly the wide receiver. Okay, notice the tight end. Tight ends have been getting a little more play at Arizona, but just be aware they're 25%. So, look at Atlanta's tight ends, 35%. So 10% more. That's going to give you more snaps, more opportunities. So notice at Atlanta, if you wonder why they've been maybe having struggling, look at the wide receivers. They're not using their 30%. Oh, man. What y'all do in Atlanta? They're relying on their running backs and tight ends, and I don't know if that's the game script they've been given. So I'm hoping that's going to change. But right now, that means people like Calvin Ridley, who I really thought was going to have a great season, is going to be behind the curve here, folks. So if you think that Atlanta is going to shift their usage away from what they've done, then maybe Calvin Ridley is worth exploring for a trade, not in Dynasty, but maybe for this year. There may be some people panicking, and you might be able to get him cheaper. I didn't say go get him cheap. Okay, you can throw a low ball out, but that just pisses people off. Try to find a perfect trading partner, somebody that needs some help with the pieces that you can spare, and then come in and offer, see if you could take Ridley from them a little cheaper than you might before season. Okay, don't know. But that's what, if I'm trading, you got to find the right partner. Okay, you just can't pick somebody, oh, they have the player I want, let me just throw something at them. Maybe they don't need that piece. You're not going to get a successful trader if you're just randomly throwing pieces at them. So Atlanta's had their issues. What's interesting is look at Baltimore at 39%. If you've seen their usage from previous years, this is really different. It would have been 39% and 35 or 6. These two would have been higher. It almost would have been like Atlanta-like. And now we're seeing two, Hollywood Brown and is it Watkins? These guys are doing much better. Very surprising to everybody. Buffalo, all passing all the time. Their tight ends are not used well. Okay, Andrews at 30% is being underutilized, folks. So so you can make some notes about this, and in your lineups, keep your notes. I would just kind of take each team and maybe put a plus or minus by the position, just kind of as a little cheat note for you when you're setting your lineups later in the week. By the way, lineups, I would set my lineups early in the week just to have them in case something, maybe my computer blows up or something. At least have a shot so you're not, playing somebody's injured or something. Like, for instance, if you had Landry last week or something, I don't know if you did, or the week before, whenever you went on IR, if you didn't check your lineups later in the week, you would get caught, but at least you had something there. So I tweak my lineups all week, every day probably. Carolina looks a lot like Buffalo. Lots of passing. Chicago, extreme. Poor Cole Kmet there. Everybody thought he was going to do so good. How can he do good at 22% usage? Come on. I think David Montgomery people thought that number would be closer to 35%. Right now, it's all the wide receivers here. Cincinnati, folks, the tight end is being used. Poor Mixon, 25%. So if you wonder, how come Mixon had been doing good? Well, they hadn't been using him. Okay? A 38 is okay, but it's not a 48. Okay? Cleveland, let's have Chubb and Hunt, but let's not use them much. 22%. Look at the tight end. Unfortunately, they just have Njoku and Hooper. So if one gets hurt, then the other one's going to roll, folks. So just keep that on your speed dial to grab them. Don't grab them now because they're cutting each other's throat. But if one gets injured, the next game back, people could be surprised. But with this metric here, you shouldn't be. Cleveland, they've had some issues. with their wide receivers. Even that, look, they've still kept 38. That means when Landry gets back and OBJ gets back, I think this is going to spell some surprise scoring there. Dallas, all about those wide receivers, folks. Poor Elliott, 25%. Denver, looks like they're using their running backs more. Fant, notice the wide receivers. So they're almost the most balanced team in the league right now. So they have a good defense and they have a balanced. I mean, that may be good for them, but it may not. I like the skew. The skew always helps if I have that piece. This kind of spreads the love, and that may not be what we need here. You think Hawkinson's not the big piece of this puzzle? Look at this. 36%. Hard to find a wide receiver. Swift is doing pretty. 31 is not bad, folks. Jamal but there's where the team flows right there. Green Bay, a little bit of balance, maybe surprising on usage. I would have think Green Bay would look more like this, but they like their Aaron Rodgers and Aaron Jones at 29. So tight end's not bad. Other than Adams, who else is getting the plays here? So Adams can probably still survive with 40%. Houston, they didn't have a couple tight ends. Look at this. Look at the running backs. They got so many and they're not using them. Brandon Cooks plus. Okay. If somebody can claim that second spot, next couple weeks, that would be a good target. I just don't know who that is yet. Closer to balance here with Indianapolis. Okay, don't forget Jack Doyle right here at 30%. That's not bad. The wide receivers, they've had some issues. Pittman's coming on. Pascal at 41 are doing really good. So I don't know if Hilton coming back changes this or not. If he comes back and this number doesn't change, it doesn't go up, then that means he's going to be taken from people. So that may not be good. Jacksonville, probably surprising. The highest use is their running backs, but they've got Fournette and who is this? Is it Giovanni Bernard? This is Rojo. Everybody's playing running backs here. No, that's Robinson. I was thinking Tampa Bay. My bad. Robinson's getting a lot of snaps, but he's just not able to do anything. O'Shaughnessy just went down, so I don't know about that number. People thought this number would be close to 40s something here, folks. So you're wondering why some of your Shark and whatnot shares. That's why 35% is not strong. KC, 44%. Look at Kelsey at 33. They're not using CEH, folks. This is telling me they're looking elsewhere and they're going to be a passing team. So I'm not sure what he's going to do for you. It doesn't look like much. The Chargers, why? They're not using Eckler at 21%. What the hell? Cook is getting his shots, 34%. And Williams and Allen, they're the show, 45%. The Rams are using their tight end, 36, and the wide receivers, 39. A little low on the running backs, but they've had some injuries. So I know people are thinking Michelle's going to come in there, but at 25%, It's not going to be the impact you think it is. Check a look at the Waller show with the Raiders. Tied in at 39%, like Detroit. That's where that team goes. The other two are balanced, which is the wide receivers are in a balance. They lose because there's more of them. So you don't be cautious of you playing the Raiders wide receivers. They're just 30%. You can't make a living at 30% for wide receiver. Miami is lots of passing. I would have hoped Gesicki could take advantage of the tight end. But it looks like the running backs and tight ends are close to the same, but they are passing more. So they're skewing to the wide receivers. Minnesota. You would think Cook would be getting more shots. 23. That's limiting Cook's play here. The tight end at 31. We hadn't heard a lot out of the tight ends there. It's all about the wide receivers. 36% is strong. Look at the running backs in New England. An afterthought. 17, that may be the lowest in the league. That's not good. Harris is being underused. And it looks like Sanu and Henry, they're the show, but they're cutting each other's points. If one gets hurt, it's kind of like Cleveland. So just keep that on speed dial. Wide receivers could be higher. 39 is I would like to see that closer to the 40. New Orleans. Wide receivers are at 37. That's low. That's not. This is worrying me here. This kind of almost Kamara here at 31. He needs to be higher. Tight ends, I don't think they're that good. I would like to see their show go over here. Saquon Barkley, look here, 21%. No wonder he can't help us out. When Ingram gets back, folks, you heard it here first. If he's on the waiver wire, I don't know when he's coming back. 42% tells me there's room for nice improvement. I am stashing him in deep benches. Even though Shepard has been doing well, 37. If Galladay gets healed or whatever it is, Slayton's 37's hard to share with 3 strong. So somebody's going to be on the outs here. So I hope it's not Shepard because I've heavily invested in him. The Jets, it's a lot about passing. A little bit a good running back at 27, not bad. The tight end, and just don't know who. I'm not sure who their tight end is here. He's not been making a lot of headway here. Philadelphia has been using their RBs. Look at their wide receivers, 34. It is hard to make a living. So those wide receivers are kind of just allowing the running backs and maybe the tight end to flourish. So this is almost another Denver balanced team. The bad news, it's who's getting the balance, who's getting the score balance this week. That's Philadelphia is probably confounding if you invested heavily. Pittsburgh is going running back, and their wide receivers should be stronger. So I'm concerned about Big Ben's throwing here. 37% concerns me greatly. I'm concerned that if it stays at that level, the wide receivers are going to be underutilized. Carson at 17%. You wonder why he's not more world famous. There you go. They're not using him. Tight ends are getting a lot of the snaps. Beware Everett, but he's probably a streamer. The running backs are basically two, but I think Swain is the three now, and some people are rushing to pick him up, so maybe he'll help you out, maybe as a streamer option. San Francisco, we hope it's Kittle, 37%, but the wide receivers, 33 is weak. The running backs, 29 is good. So the wide receivers are taking the hit. Frisco, maybe Kittle should break out. 37 is a great target score. I'm sorry, a usage. Tampa Bay, balance with Gronk. Look at 33 is nice with Gronk and wide receivers. The running backs, they're cutting each other's throat at 26%. It's not high, and there's too many of them. Tennessee, notice with Henry, 28, it's almost tending to balance. Yeah, I wish Tennessee would have used their tight end more to score. But even though I think they're in there to pass block. And Julio and Brown, 35, that's a lot of, that's not a strong snap share there. So that's not good. I hope that trend continues. Washington, the running backs and wide receivers. Logan is not 30%. It's not getting what I thought he would get. So it's almost a balanced team as well. So I've got you a snapshot here. We should look to see if there is a change. In the next couple weeks, this needs to be tracked and followed so we can see if there's a change, so we can anticipate picking up players, dropping players, that kind of thing. But we're not reacting to, 2 weeks, really. I just make note of what the trends have been. And I guess we're pointing out some concerning spots. Don't know how actionable a lot of this is until we get a little bit more of the data. But I think you should be well aware and already have, for your team, kind of some concern, various players depending on their where they're at and what their position is being used by. Okay, let's move on. So now I took the usage and positions and focused on them. So we did the running backs first, and percentage of team usage and the average player snaps are listed there in green and blue here. And Jacksonville was number 1 in usage, which is probably surprising. Pittsburgh number 2, Atlanta, Philadelphia, Washington. On the bottom is New England, Seattle, the Giants, the Chargers, Houston, and Cleveland. So consider the running backs there. Consider the running backs at the top. People talk about, well, is this going to be a trend throughout? We've just got 2 weeks. Maybe now's the time to invest in Saquon Barkley or Carson or Harris a little bit. Maybe they're down a little bit in what they could be later on. So it's good to consider that, and I wanted to show you that distribution. Here it is. So it's average player snaps from high to low and usage high to low. And anything above the pink line is above average. Okay. And so you can see what teams, for instance, here's New Orleans. They had one of the lowest player snaps, but they're using their running backs pretty high compared to the amount of snaps, and that's why they would end up there. So you certainly, that's not a good point, but you don't want the worst in the worst, right? Like Seattle, look at that. Lowest and one of the lowest in usage. That's not good. Carson's really not getting a shot at generating some points for CEH as well. People squawking about that. Well, I think the data is pretty clear. Here's tight ends. Shadow New England. The Giants are really hoping that Ingram comes back well. Houston's good. Cleveland, there's Waller. Okay, Cincinnati, not bad. Here's the ones that Chicago worst. Commit. So Cole Kemet, there it is. If you want to know why he's not doing well, he's not being used. Knox, people wanting to get Max Williams this week, just realize 25%, so it's the third worst in the leagues. Be aware. Eric Ebron, fourth worst. Okay, Dallas, fifth or sixth worst, so that's not good. Look at Andrews down here, one of the top 3 or 4, and he's down at 30%. Not good. So this can explain some of that, I think. And I like, check it out, the metrics here. It's really clear where the top teams are. Here they are, above the pink line. And here's somebody like KC. So one of the lowest per snaps, Kelsey, but Kelsey's doing pretty good. But imagine if his snap, he was something like New England. Can you imagine what Kelsey would be producing? So some of what we see last week has to be interpreted through the metrics here. Okay. So some players may be not as bad as you think. Others may be better than you think. And that's strictly due to how the team has used them. Wide receivers, Chicago, number 1. Dallas, number 2. Minnesota, Buffalo, Chargers, Kansas City. Those are the top, was that 6? Do you know all the wide receiver ones there? Yeah, you do. Atlanta, Calvin Ridley at the bottom. That is so sad. The Raiders at the bottom. Detroit at the bottom. San Francisco at the bottom. Philadelphia, Jacksonville, Tennessee. So they're doing a lot with not giving their wide receivers a lot of use. So consider, do these teams move up? Do these teams move down? People talk about regression to the mean. I don't know. This is what's happened now. Here it is above the average here, and then usage. Notice it's closer to a straight line. Wide receivers always have that tendency to be a lot more grouped alike than separate. So just in your drafts and whatnot, that's, that fuels the debate on 0 RB, 0 WR, whatever. Early tight end, late tight end. Always a controversy every year. It's going to be one next year as well. Okay, let's move on. I took each team at a time, added the players' names, looked at week 1, week 2 snaps, average of snaps, and anything different from week 2 to 1. So, and I colorized that just to see the changes. Okay, just to see the changes, see what we got. Everybody's on Rondale Moore. Just realize this is where he was at. He's the 4th snap player, wide receiver. So people on Max Williams, clearly the dominant. That's good. So that's probably not too bad. It's just the usage is not what I would like. But you know, I'm ambivalent. Edmonds was fine. Connor dropped down. That if you have Connor as a backup, that's probably all he's going to be. I don't know if he's going to have independent value. Probably not good. Davis dropped a little bit. Smith about the same. So Smith seems to be your backup. Pitts was actually went 8 snaps up. Hurst 13 down. So if people are thinking there's going to be that shift, looks like it's potentially beginning. So Calvin Ridley about the same number of snaps. Gage, I think, got hurt. So Olamdi, his number is took over for Gage. So he went up 23 because of that. So it's probably 1 and 2. Patterson, even though he scored, was 24. So, you know, I don't know if Patterson's going to be a big thing or not. Maybe he's the number 2 running back. I don't know. Baltimore, Richard gets a lot of snaps, not a lot of points. Here's Williams. Murray's coming on a little bit. Devontae Freeman got 10 snaps. Cannon, they went to Frisco. So starting to feel a little crowded here. Andrews, 57. So snap-wise, there's nothing to say he shouldn't be scoring. So I don't know. Watkins went up 14. Brown at 8. These guys are dominating the snaps. So looks like, given the usage and how the team's now behaving, these guys have some viability. Watkins as well. Singletary dropped, but I think that's, didn't they have overtime week 1? So this doesn't count, you know, time of possession here, and that could be misleading. Yeah, I think everybody went down, so that they did have overtime. So Singletary at 43. Zach Moss only got 18, so about half. So does that continue? Breida dropped. Knox at 54 went up a little bit, so good for him. Diggs, Samuels, Sanders, and Beasley are the top 3. Pretty close together, actually. Gabriel, not sure anybody else is viable there. McCaffrey didn't really change. Chuba Hubbard at 19. Royce Freeman finally got some snaps. Thomas, 52. That's intriguing. Keep your eyes on him. But boy, they got a lot that they're using. I'm not sure the strategy there. Moore and Anderson, 1 and 2. The rookie, he's staying clear 3 at this point, even though this guy, Brandon, scored, I think. Montgomery went up a little bit. Williams went down. Montgomery still, number 1 commit. 47, not bad, but they're sure spreading out the snaps, and that's hurting Kimmett's value. Look at all these. Why have so many? I don't know. Mooney, number 1 week 1, number 1 week 2. So be aware. That could be saying something about, So it's clearly, to me, a 1A, 1B scenario. Mixon dropped a little bit. I do not know who the handcuff is. Okay. You would have said that, but I don't know. CJ and Sample, they're splitting each other's scores, so got to have an injury for anyone's viable. Chase, number 1 the last 2 weeks. So there you go. Looks like a 1A, B, and C. Who would have thought Chase would instantly be in the mix? It's already crowded. So that doesn't help any of them actually being that way. So I would downgrade all these just because everybody, if one gets hurt, that's going to help. Chubb at 35, that's low. Hunt 23, that's low. I have concerned about that. The tight ends are getting a lot of play, but look at this. It's almost 3 tight ends here. Hooper's been number 1, but these people are cutting his play there. Given all the controversy, Landry left. Looks like it's Peoples-Jones and Higgins, 1 and 2. So I guess if OBJ comes, is he the 1? And this is the 2? Might be an opportunity here to snag one of these while Landry's out. Elliott at 44, I think they had. Didn't they have an overtime? Pollard's clear, back up. Schultz beat Jarwin this time. So it's a little murky on who's the number 1. I think Jarwin's the number 1, even though he's not getting as many snaps. Cooper and Lamb and Wilson is the number 3. Wilson might be a DFS play, long shot tournament, kind of roll the dice in a stack or something. Denver, Gordon, Javonte. Gordon a little bit more, 8. Javonte went down 5. Not sure if that's a trend, but there it is. Fant didn't change, and he's getting all the scoring. So Fant continues at 50. Sutton, Patrick, Hamler, 1A, B, and C. That does not help anybody's cause there. Nobody's the dominant. Hamler really stepped up when Judy's gone. So I'm assuming that when Judy's back, Hamler drops back. So if you picked him up, you should use him until Judy comes back. Swift dropped 36, Jamal at 22, so they both dropped. I think there was overtime week 1, yeah. Hawkinson, 53, but he's the focal point of Detroit. Who would have thought? Number 1 is Cephas last. Okay, I think my dogs are through killing each other. So let's see, what are we talking about? Cephas and Raymond. With Tyrell out, Cephas stepped up. I think when Tyrell's back, he drops down. Benson dropped, so I don't know. He was at 49. He was above Williams for week 1. Ra, I guess, was hurt. And boy, that wasn't a strong usage backfield, and they got a lot of mouths to feed. I think Cephas probably the safest. I'm not sure I'd invest a lot. Aaron Jones went up. Imagine that with all the scoring he did. Mercedes Lewis over Tanyan, but Tanyan scored. And Daphne was also there. Those are probably more the blockers. Devontae Adams went up. Lazard, and Scantling, 2A, 2B. Nobody else is making any kind of impact here. I just don't know if these guys are viable here, given the run usage of Aaron Jones is cutting their value. Last week it was Johnson, number 2, 26. Let's spread the ball. Week 1 it was Ingram. Let's spread the ball. So it is clear that Ingram is going to play some type of role here. It's just having Lindsey and Burkhead is muddy in the water. Brown and Akins, if one gets hurt, I think the other one, it could be a streamer. Cooks, Connolly really stepped it up when Nicole Collins got hurt and Andy Roberts stepped in. So when Collins comes back, and Andre is not, you shouldn't pick him up. Amendola's hurt. So right now, these are your viable 2, but the new quarterback, who knows? I would definitely be cautious about picking up Conley with the new quarterback. Taylor dropped, Hines dropped, Marlon Mack's back, and looks like he cut into both of them. So now let's muddy the water even more. Doyle finding separation from Ollie Cox and is probably worth a tight end 2 type pickup. I would pick him up. Pittman is clear 1, Pascal clear 2. Especially with Campbell out, those 2 are probably worth a pickup until Hilton and Campbell get back. Shaughnessy's hurt, so Luke Farrell stepped up. I don't think anything's there. Robinson went down a little bit. Hyde really dropped 11, so they're still putting their eggs in the Robinson basket. He's just not producing. Jones, Shark, and Chenault, 1A, B, and C, hurts everybody's value. So I couldn't even tell you who the 3 is. Don't know. The 4. So I don't know how to play all this. I've got Jones. I play him. I didn't really draft these 2. Solaire dropped. I guess Darrell is the handcuff, but they're not using these guys. Kelsey dropped a little. Fairly used. Hill and Hardman and DeMarcus Robinson. Looks like it's a 1, 2, and 3 kind of thing, or certainly Hill, but then these guys may be a sneaky pickup on a good in a good matchup week. Just be aware, but I'm not sure. Don't know if they're worth stashing, but could be. But I'm not picking them up. Eckler, they're underutilizing him, I guess. It is unclear who the handcuff is. Just want to let y'all know. Cook is maintaining his number 1, and he's viable in the red zone. Allen Williams, folks, I'm Guyton, I'm picking him up for $1. So there you go. There's your injury handcuff right there. Pick him up now, for it's too late. You've heard it here now. Don't think a lot of people are awake yet. They need to be awake. Henderson got hurt. Michelle took over late, got some touches. I guess he's the guy now. Don't know what we're going to get. Maybe he's learned the playbook. He could surprise. This could be his week. I think if I was playing tournament, I'd probably stick him in there and just hope he wakes up. Higbee went up 7, but I think he's not producing your points. So we got 1A, B, and C, even though Cup really dominates scoring here. I guess teams are picking on Woods and letting Cup get a little, their number 2 guy, cornerback. Jefferson's going to be hit or miss, but it muddies the water having those 3 as well. Jacobs hurt, so Drake took over and really didn't produce. Everybody's talking about Peyton Barber. I don't know. I'm not rushing out to pick him up. Waller, this defense goes through him. 61, even though Moreau got a score too. Edwards and Ruggs are slipping away from win throws, so those are the 1-2. I guess I would probably pick up Ruggs, maybe? Maybe he has more upside. I'm not really looking to shop hard. Gaskins actually went up 16. Ahmed looks like the handcuff. Grosecki stepped it up some, got a little bit more points. I'm hoping he's going to continue, but they have a lot of tight ends to feed here, and that doesn't help. I would not have anticipated 5 tight ends, so that I didn't think Grosecki would have that much snap share. Snap sharing, not snap share. Parker, Waddy, Wilson, I guess with, who's coming back this week? I'm sorry, my mind is gone. Seeing blue and red and green here. Whoever that is probably takes Wilson's spot. So then it'll probably be a 1A, B, and C, or maybe Parker will be the one and the rookie will drop down. If I had Waddy, I would hope to have him in Dynasty and probably not be playing him. Fuller, when Fuller comes back. Cook dropped a little bit, but I think they had a overtime week 1. Unclear who, I guess Madison's the backup. They sure are sharing a lot, hurting Cook. Conklin, I guess, is the one. Just not sure he can deliver. Here's the 1 and the 2 with Osborne as a week 3, folks. Worth $1 pick up for injury, for sure. Pick him up. I've got him in every league I can get him in for $1. Cheap. Everybody's been asleep on him. Just like Guyton now. Everybody's asleep. Great injury handcuff. If you've got a deep bench. If you don't, stay away. White was the number 1 last week. Harris dropped. So it was a James White passing kind of guy, kind of day. So are we going to have that matchup based scenario between these two? Watch that. Let's watch that trend. Henry maintained his snaps more than Sanu, so I'm not sure what that means yet. Be aware, Henry might end up being the piece. Myers and Aguilar, 1-2, 1A, 1B, so they're probably worth a stab in a pickup in a PPR league. Kamara, 37 snaps. I don't even know what to believe. And I don't know if Tony Jones is the handcuff. Here's Ty Montgomery. I'm getting out of the Tony Jones business. Probably too early, but not liking how New Orleans is using Kamara under these new conditions. Look at the tight ends. Not happy about that at all. Look at this spread. Not happy about week 2. They got spanked. So if week 1 is real when they have an easy matchup, then I guess Callaway, Kamara, and Troutman are the play. If it's a tough matchup, I probably would avoid everybody. So New Orleans is now matchup based. Barkley, 58. I really like to see that, folks. They haven't been. Look at the week before. Maybe it's this injury and he's coming in. I think Booker's still the handcuff. Caden Smith and Rudolph fighting for scraps, hoping Ingram comes in and takes it away from both of them. Shepard's been the number 1 guy week 1 and 2 now. He's the person to have. He's still available on some waiver wires. Grab him now. And also, Slayton is your injury number 3 that could bolt to number 2 or 1 depending on injury. So he's another dollar pickup. Watch Tony. Maybe he's going to ascend later, but it's not time now. Ty Johnson, looks like Carter woke back up, but now they're splitting, so that doesn't help either. That helps no one. It's like Coleman's getting relegated back down, so I would probably, I'm getting out of the Coleman business and maybe going into the Carter business. Croft, maybe a D play. Corey Davis is still viable. Elijah Moore, viable. Berrios is the injury handcuff. Grabbing for $1 on the deep bench if you've invested in the Jets. You can see how this is going to play if there's an injury. Sanders and Gainwell dropped both 8 and 6. Underwhelmed. Goddard and Ertz. It's 1A, 1B. Unless one gets hurt, I'm not sure how viable they are. Smith, still number 1. Rager, number 2. Watkins dropped. I guess I don't think people are panicking yet on Smith. Rager's probably worth a deep stab on a deep bench. Harris doing what Harris does, being the number 1. Guess who the handcuff is? Ebron is either hurt or something. I don't know. I'm staying away there. Looks like we got a Schuster is the one. Care what y'all people say. There he is. Johnson's 2. Claypool's the 3. If one is hurt, then it's Washington as a D play. Dollar for your holler kind of guy. Right there. It's just if Ben is hurt, how much do we get? How deep do we go? Carson dropped. Homer's the backup now. I would not be in the backup business. Everett, there was usage. Disley dropped, so Everett's a tight end 2 in a premium league, maybe worth a stash. Swain went up to 41. That's good. Certainly improved. I don't know if week 2 was just that kind of week where you could play all the wide receivers. Swain is another one, $1 for your holler person, but just realize that he's still the 3rd. Mitchell bounced back, 43. That's nice. Kyle's just the blocking guy. Hasty is hurt. He was coming on. I guess Mitchell's the viable. Kittle, 70. That is nice to see. They just need to get him some red zone. He needs some scoring now, so I'm hoping that will come. So if you own Kittle, don't trade him away yet. Samuel Ayuk, looks like they both went up a little bit, but 40s are not. I'd like to see it in the 50s or more. Fournette and Jones. They gave Jones 26. I just don't think. I think it's a passing game, and especially with Gronk. I think if Gronk gets hurt, then I think the running game can pop back up. Evans and Godwin. Godwin's number one. Evans number two. Is Brown on the COVID? I think he is. So I guess Scotty Miller's next, maybe. Hard to tell. Or Tyler Johnson. It could be a deep play this week. I think I'm avoiding the running backs unless Gronk gets hurt. Henry, what can I say? 67 snaps. Goodness, that's exactly what you want. McNichols is the handcuff. Swaim and Pruitt are sharing, and they're being used more. Nice. Or did Tennessee have an overtime? These are high numbers, so I'm assuming they went overtime. Brown and Julio, one A, one B. I guess Rodgers is the injury guy. Just underwhelmed by him. Not sure I would. I don't think this is the team to draft Rodgers. McKissick really woke up at 11. So last week is what I thought McKissick would do for us. So do we throw week one out for McKissick? If you're bold, start McKissick. Thomas 71's nice. Did they have overtime too? Damn you, Brown. Sorry, Mr. Brown. Humphreys really took a step up too. Humphreys, I've invested with $1. That's an injury handcuff worth $1. It's McLaurin show. Okay. This is just me assigning a role to these players. The TP is the team role, or the I forgot what else. Sometimes I'll make up abbreviations. Anyway, those are the running back ones here. So you can look 57 to 27. Big difference. I scaled them. I scaled the numbers. Player snap. So I wanted to have a little bit more to show on a scale 0 to 100. This is the first block. I also have the differences. So Henry went up. Montgomery went up. Barkley went up. Gaskin and Aaron Jones went up. So you can see Jacobs, of course, didn't play. Ezekiel Elliott dropped, I think. So just see who the top one. So of the top 5, Singletary has been the big, people talk about surprise. Look at Davis. Everybody's writing him off. Don't write him off. He's up there. Who else? Probably nothing overly surprising at this point, but I like to look at this. Here's the number two. The best number two is Drake as far as snaps, then Tyson Williams, Javonte Williams. Those are probably worth your investments here. Michelle, I think, is going to improve. Here's your wide receiver three. The best one is Latavius Murray and Hasty. So there you go. Pick those up. You won't. Barber is the number four. He might, with injuries, move up. So he might leave the four ranks, go to the three or the two. Keep your eyes on him. I'm not playing him, but you can. Tight ends, Waller, Hawkinson, Thomas, Kittle. Where's Kelsey? He's way down there. Hold it now. That's not what I did not draft Kelsey to be that far down. Max Williams has more snaps than him. What is going on? You hadn't heard a lot about that, have you? Well, you need to. That is not good for us. Look at Cole Kemet. So, tight ends are a little bit wackier here. Okay. I would buy Kittle if people are panicked. Andrews as well might be a good buy. Here's who's the best tight end. Two is Akins, Foster Moreau, Jonnu Smith. Receiver three types. I'm not invested. Wide receiver one, Thielen, number one in snaps. Hello. Nobody would have Pittman. Pittman is real. You need to get it all over him for people wake up and realize he's definitely worthy snap wise, opportunity wise, everything wise. Mooney, look right there. He's there. Okay, get ready. Good stuff here. I would make a laundry list, shopping list. Look at Sterling Shepard. Get you a shopping list. Notice, these metrics here. A lot of people these were not drafted. So it looks to me like there's a lot more surprises in the wide receivers this year. And maybe that's befuddling a lot of folks. Don't be befuddled, okay? Get clarity. Yes, we can. Who's the best number two? Zach Pascal, the best. Better than CeeDee Lamb. Hey, Jefferson, hey. In snaps, not scoring. Okay. Look at Guyton, the best number three besides Beasley. And Osborne right there, folks. I'm taking Guyton and Osborne any and all places. Number four, I think Tyrell's going to come back when that he's probably up there. Wilson, I guess, and Davis are the play. If you got to invest, is there five? Oh yeah. I don't know who this cat is. Okay. I don't remember him doing much, but just want to let you know, Mr. Benson is out there. Okay, that's my 10-cent tour, hour and 20 minutes. I'm sorry. I take a long bit of time running my mouth. Hopefully I help you out. Come see my article. Let's crush this week. It's Dr. Bush for his process series. Come back.